There's always been the blame game on the fight against corruption. We have good laws, we have sufficient laws. Some other times you put the whole blame on the judiciary. Joining us to look at that is Moyesoro Onigbanjo. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you guys.
Fight against corruption. Let's start looking at it holistically. First, you've heard the NLC calling for capital punishment for anyone found guilty of maybe corrupt practice. You're a lawyer, and we'll yet to see some other lawyers that would say they're on the same page with the NLC.
I really do not agree with the NLC that capital punishment would act as a deterrent to corruption in the country as we have it. Because if you look at it, there's capital punishment for murder and principally for murder. But has it stopped the rate of killings going on? People are being killed every day in villages. You have communities where they clash against each other. You have the Boko Haram, the insurgents, you have kidnappers, you have armed robbers. They kill at will. Life is cheap in Nigeria. People die every day. All these people who perpetrate these acts, they know that, I mean, their life can be taken if they're taken to court. But it hasn't stopped them. On a more brutish scale, if a robber is caught in a public gathering, that robber or accused robber is most likely to be lynched, and they all know it. But has this also stopped them? No. Every day on the bridges, in traffic, people are being attacked. And all these people who perpetrate these acts, they know that if they are caught, they would most likely either be beaten to almost unconsciousness or killed, but it doesn't stop them. So saying that capital punishment should be imposed for corruption matters. I don't think it would also act as a deterrent. The greatest problem we have here is that people feel that generally in Nigeria, if you commit any crime for that matter, as trivial as driving on against the one-way traffic or stealing billions of naira, the general feeling is that nothing is going to happen to me. I can get away with this, and that's why people do it. Because you see all Nigerians who can be so unruly, who can be so lawless, the minute you take a flight and you go to Europe with them, and that flight lands in Europe or America or wherever, they become so orderly. They queue up properly. They do all the things that they're asked to do. Why? Because they know you can't get away with it. So because in a society where you know that the minute you step out of line of the law, no matter how trivial it is, you're going to pay for it, then people tend not to do it. But where you have a society where I can think that if I give you a slap now, nothing is going to happen. Because at the end of the day, after deliberately committing a crime, then I apologize to you, then I compromise the system, and then I go on jolly living the life that I want.
If you look at it, some have talked about immunity for some politically exposed persons, and one wonders that even when some of them leave offices, still such matters are not brought before them. And if you talk about the impunity with which a lot of people carry out some of these things, they put the blame also on the judiciary. That, you know, so many times you have had what they call frivolous injunctions coming from your own quarter.
Yes, the judiciary, I mean, all actors in the justice sector must take a blame for it. Because, for example, a judge who wants to do his job, sometimes hampered by shoddy investigation from the police authorities or the investigating authorities, lack of diligent prosecution by the prosecutors. So in that kind of situation, there's nothing that your most willing judge can even do. Because, I mean, it's when the foundation is wobbly, then you cannot expect that at the top of it, the building is going to remain standing. The case against such a person is going to crumble because the very basics have not been done. Although in some cases too, you also find that some judges really, but very few of them to my mind and from my experience, are not up and doing. So we need to look at the whole system holistically and starting right from when these matters are being investigated. Are the investigators, are the policemen, the EFCC, ICPC, are they doing their job thoroughly and diligently and, you know, without being compromised?
But even at that, it goes back to what I asked. That sometimes injunctions are gotten from the court stopping such actions.
Yes, and to my mind, those injunctions really, they do a lot of disservice to the justice system. Because I do not see why a court should stop a statutory body, the police, for example, or the EFCC, from investigating a crime. That is the main purpose for which they have been set up. And I think that at the earliest opportunity, the Supreme Court should really settle the position of the law on this, because I'm aware of one or two decisions which say that an injunction should not be granted to restrain a statutory body from carrying out its functions, its statutory functions. So if you set up a body and you say this body is empowered to investigate crimes, then it is not proper for a court to grant an injunction to restrain that body from carrying out its statutory functions. But we've seen it now in quite a couple of instances. I remember in Rivers State, we had one of such injunctions. Recently, we had it in the extradition matter against the senator. So, but I think the apex court needs to tackle and settle this issue at the earliest opportunity that they have.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. The issue of corruption matters, and the NLC going to the National Assembly looking at getting the laws reviewed. But you talked about it goes beyond the laws to the institutions. Does that still not mean a work has to be done by the National Assembly?
Yes, there's no doubt. Like I said, it's holistic. Everybody involved in this has to take part of the blame or assume more responsibility. But the first thing I think is that we have certain laws now which says if you steal, you go to jail for 2 years. If you drive against traffic, you go to jail for 6 months, or your license is suspended, or what have you. But are we really even enforcing those ones?
Are you saying those ones, if you steal a pen, you go to jail for 1 day, at least send the person to jail
exactly.
for 1 day?
Let us take the first step by saying, no matter how what do we call it, how minimal the penalty is right now, let us enforce that. Let us even get these people to be convicted of a crime in the first place, so that we do away with impunity. We do away with that culture that I can get away with this if I do it. Then you can now say, okay, let's impose higher sentences for all these offenses. But to my mind, I think that the major thing is, even the ones that we have now, are we enforcing them to the letter of the law? But we are clearly not. We're lagging behind seriously. I'm sure if the statistics are compiled, maybe we're not even doing 10% of enforcement. Anybody who lives in Lagos sees every day the amount of traffic violations going on. People driving through red lights, people driving against traffic, all kinds of things. But if you just check the statistics from the police or from Ministry of Justice, how many people have been convicted for traffic offenses in Lagos? Very few. We also know that majority of people drive without the proper vehicle papers and maybe even a driver's license. How many people have been convicted for driving without having a license? How many people have been convicted for driving under the influence? You just find that it's actually a joke.